If you want to learn how to gain insights you can act on and solve business problems with data, all while building a data-driven culture at your organization, sign up for Pragmatic Institute's new course, Data Science for Business Leaders. Find out more at pragmaticinstitute.com/data.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Gifford. I was a winter 2021 cohort member. I got my PhD in neuroscience back in 2016 from the University of Pennsylvania. Probably as you'll hear from many of the panelists and most of you, kind of fell out of love with an idea of an academic career and wanted to make use of my computational and data science-like skills. But needed some additional help and resources in order to make that transition. So I found the Data Incubator, found the program to be super helpful in terms of the technical skills and a lot of the, I guess, sort of supplementary skills that we can get into later to help sort of make that transition work. And currently I am a principal data scientist at Behavior, which is a digital health virtual reality startup company. Working on things like stress management and digital therapeutics. So that's me.
Thank you. And then next up, we have Trey.
How's everyone doing today? Thank you guys for having me. My name is Troy Williams. I'm a Boston native. I was a part of the, I believe, fall 2021 cohort, part-time cohort. We finished up, I believe, this in March. And I'm currently working at McKesson as a data scientist. McKesson is a pharmaceutical distributor, one of the largest, number 7 on the Fortune 500 list. And we work around different projects relating to price optimization, internal leakage, and various other supply chain management related tasks. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Welcome, Trey. We're happy to have you here as one of our alumni panelists. And then our first, Robert, if you could introduce yourself to the attendees today.
Of course. Hi, I'm Robert Schavinger. I got my PhD in 2010 from Rutgers University. And then I worked for 11 years as a researcher in theoretical high-energy particle physics. And then I transitioned to data science. And I guess it was the first cohort of 2021 that I did, actually with Adam and the other Robert. And now I work for DCI Solutions, which is a military contractor based at Aberdeen Proving Ground, but now we've expanded and we have presence in Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia, presence in Colorado Springs. And so it's a rapidly growing company, a lot of exciting opportunities, and I'll talk more about that when the time comes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. And then Robert, if you can introduce yourself as well.
Hey everyone, Robert number 2 here. I started off in civil engineering, got my PhD back in only a couple years ago, 2019. After I was done with my PhD, I did a small postdoc and realized, as I'm sure everyone else did, that I had a leaning towards computational work, programming and such. I wanted to sort of make those skills better. And the Data Incubator was a perfect opportunity. I was in the winter 2021 cohort, like Adam and Robert, and I started with a company called Affinity directly after the cohort. I've been working for them for about exactly 1 year, where I make statistical models for optimizing agent customer interactions. And we can get into details about that later if we want.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for introducing yourself. We were going to go into our questions that we have prepared, and for our audience, please place questions in the Q&A. We will open the floor to questions towards the end of our session today. But for all of our panelists, I know in your introductions, you all talked a little bit about your new roles, but I'd like you to give us a little bit more details about what that looks like at your company and your current roles and how you're sort of fitting in after completing the program.
I'll jump in first if everybody doesn't mind. So yeah, my official role is data scientist 2. But essentially what that means is I create statistical models. So we use a lot of Bayesian statistics specifically to sort of rank agents in the caller system and groups of callers. And we pair them optimally. Optimally is obviously a general word. It depends on what our target is. A lot of the times it's just sales cues. So like somebody's calling into Comcast, who's more influenceable for a sale, who's less influenceable for a sale based on certain things. So like when you call into a caller service, there's a lot of information, right? Whether it's from your phone number, whether it's from your account itself. And whenever you press buttons on the phone, like 1 for this department, 2 for this, that's all information that we can use in order to make sure that the interaction between the customer and the agent is optimal. Sometimes, specifically on the accounts I work on, that's for non-sales. So I work on a UHG, which is a healthcare company. We optimize getting care to patients. So whenever a patient is due for like a cancer screening or a wellness visit, we match those pairs to hopefully bring those numbers up so that we have a healthy customer. Yeah, and maintaining that is the biggest part. So like debugging when there's problems, making sure that problems don't arise or catching changes in data early. The maintaining of the data is actually a much larger portion of the job than the actual modeling, to be honest. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Adam or Robert or Trey, if you'd like to chime in there as well.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I am the principal data scientist at Behavior, which is a Series B startup. So sort of slightly maybe differently from Robert, my roles and responsibilities sort of span the sort of traditional data science, machine learning engineer / operations / data analyst. I kind of have my hands in a little bit of everything that's data related. It is not necessarily it's not a long-term solution. Obviously, as a company grows, we want to specialize, but I sort of came in as the data guy, essentially. So I do a lot of the early exploratory data analyses to understand how people are using our virtual reality products. I am involved in doing some of the statistics work to analyze how our products are working efficacy-wise, whether or not people are actually getting some benefit out of it. We are developing our first machine learning model to try and predict users' improvements in efficacy as a function of how they interact with the product. And right now we're actually starting to implement a data science machine learning architecture in Azure. So how to organize basically the MLOps side of things, how to streamline the analysis and machine learning work and production, deployment work in order to, streamline the process from beginning to end. So I have my hand in a little bit of everything. Probably makes me a jack of all trades and a master of none. But hopefully, as we get there, I can start to specialize into the actual pure data science stuff, which I think is where my heart's at. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. And Robert or Trey, if you want to give us a little more information about your current roles and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, I found the last thing you said amusing, Adam, because for me, I think when I started, I didn't quite know what to expect. And it's basically turned out to be data science in name only. So my job title is data scientist, but it's almost all other things. There is a significant amount of software development with a bent towards cybersecurity. That's probably 50% of my job. And then, there's mathematics. Maybe you could say it's 20% mathematics, 20% research, and kind of 10% other, where the 10% is like trade secrets and controlled and classified information I can't talk about. So, it's exciting in a lot of ways. It's a very small company. It's 120 people, and we're rapidly growing. We're traditionally, we've been helping the Army out with cybersecurity solutions, but now we have people in healthcare. We have people working for the Air Force. So it's really branching out, and I think there's great prospects for growth. And so it's sort of like a startup environment, but it's kind of more on the government side. And the rules are different, so that there's no venture capital, right? So it's kind of, you have a horse show every so often, and you try to impress your government clients, so they give you cool contracts to do more cool stuff. And if people want to ask me more specific questions, I'll do my best to answer. It's sometimes tricky because there's lots of things that I can't say, but I'll do my best to fill in the gaps.
We understand top secret information, so we won't ask too much.
Well, it's actually not top secret. I haven't set foot in the top secret facility. I haven't even gotten my badge yet, and I've been employed since May of last year. That gives you an idea of how long it takes.
There's even more secrets there.
So I'm only working on what's called controlled unclassified information, which means that it's nothing special. You can figure it out from the research literature, but you're not allowed to talk about it or publish it, because the idea is that the synthesis of all the different ideas and papers taken together may be something which gives an adversarial actor an edge, and you want to avoid that if possible.
So Trey, can you tell us a little bit about your role at McKesson?
So I just recently started, so I think this is my second month working there. But so far, I've just been handling a lot of projects that were sort of in the works of being deployed. So it's sort of a full end-to-end sort of data science, I would say, pipeline or life cycle, where it's also a mix of software engineering as well. So we're actually implementing test-driven development, or at least that's what I'm attempting to bring into the company, and then trying to move away from functional programming and utilizing more object-oriented programming for developing, these specific models that we're actually working on. So in some cases, yeah, it's full-on data science, right, math and the computational fun, and then there's a software engineering where we're trying to figure out how we can potentially scale these models to be efficient. Once they're deployed and in the wild, we might not have so much control over them. So more recently, I've just taken over. I guess it's not a top secret project, but I'm doing some anomaly detection, and so we're currently trying to develop a higher level way of approaching different anomalies in various situations. And so that's the project that I'm currently working on.
Perfect. Well, thank you for all of our panelists for giving us a little bit of insight about your roles. It's exciting to see, our alumni out in the workforce and enjoying their roles as well. We love to see that when you guys come back here for these panels. So I want to pivot back to your time in the program and just get some insight into what made you decide to join the Data Incubator program. And this is for all panelists, so feel free to, anyone can chime in.
I think it's really what Robert said, that, that we've had these skills, and we just, everyone had the feeling that our skills should be worth something and that someone would be happy to employ us, but it just wasn't clear where to apply. I mean, I never knew that there were these opportunities. I never knew that the government would employ data scientists to do, totally unrelated things, and more cybersecurity analytics than data science, really. So it's just kind of interesting to see what is out there and what the space of possibilities really is, and to see what the skill set is that is in high demand. I think this is what TDI really brings to the table. Well, I can say for myself, best money I ever spent in my life.
Oh, glad to hear it.
There's the endorsement.
For me, it was somewhat similar. I would say that I knew there was a demand for my skills, but my skills were incomplete, and I think I felt overwhelmed on my own trying to learn trying to figure out first what I needed to learn, and then figure out where the best places to learn it from. It is possible to find all of this information that you learn at TDI online somewhere. But for me, the benefit of TDI was having experienced data scientists go through these are the processes for developing and deploying a machine learning model, doing exploratory data analysis, doing natural language processing, whatever. And so you have some general reassurance, first of all, that what you're learning are actual tools that real data scientists use. And sort of separately, the end result of your of the boot camp is you come out with a project that you've done from start to finish, that you publish in some way, shape, or form, that sits in a GitHub repo, and you have like an app in Heroku that has a finished product. Like, you have something to show for your efforts, which is something that you have to figure out how to do on your own if you are not going through a program like this, right? And then sort of the third step is, which I found, I think, the most helpful is, if you're trying to apply for jobs on your own, like, unless you have other data science contacts and people to get your foot in the door somewhere, you are one of hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants at any random job that you find on LinkedIn. And it's very hard to get through that first step. Whereas with TDI, like, they have a bunch of hiring partners, not that you necessarily have to go through them, but like, they have a, network of hiring partners that have worked with TDI in the past, know the kinds of data science, like the quality of the data science to come out. And you basically just have a leg up, like, just putting your application out to one of these hiring partners, saying that you're a TDI, or going through TDI to get, to apply to the job. I think when I did it by myself for a year before I joined TDI, I applied to, maybe 100 jobs and got an interview at 2 or 3 of them. Whereas, doing the same process, I applied to 15 jobs in TDI and got an interview at almost all of them, like at least a first round interview. So just getting your foot in the door was the biggest thing for me. So I think for all those reasons, it was, that was sort of why I wanted to get to TDI.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I can second that. Not from my own experience. I went kind of directly from my previous career to TDI. I never even tried it because I knew I would fail, basically, because I wasn't a strong programmer when I started TDI, and that's really essential in this business. And so I knew that there was work that I had to do. But a colleague of mine who was an extremely strong programmer, really one of the best I've ever met, he applied to 50 jobs and he got one interview. And he said, "Rob, what's wrong with me?" I was like, "There's nothing wrong with you, man. You just have to go to TDI. This is what you got to do."
Send them our way, Rob.
And he did it, and it worked. He's employed now at, I believe it's Revelio Labs. So yeah,
Awesome.
It works just like a charm, because I knew he was good. I knew he had the skills. It's just that you have to be recognized for the skills that you have.
Not to drag the question on, but I share their sentiments entirely. Not only was it easier to get an interview, I had companies reach out to me for interviews because of the partner system, which, I don't think that ever happens outside of a situation like this, usually, at least. I entirely agree with Adam and Robert.
Glad to hear it. And Trey, if anything you'd like to add?
The reason I joined for a challenge at the time, I considered myself to be a quote unquote self-proclaimed data scientist, right? I didn't necessarily need the industry to give me the title, and was proven wrong. There are a lot of things that TDI teaches you that'll not only refine your skills, but will, empower you to take on larger tasks with different set of tools. Which is what they definitely equipped me with. And I feel a lot more comfortable in a variety of situations prior to being admitted to TDI. And then also for the community, I have a ton of friends now that I can talk to, right, that are also from the program, who are data scientists or data engineers. And whenever I run into a problem, we can joke about all the mini projects.
That's glad to hear. We're glad that we're still able to have that community, even in an online environment, with our students being able to network and get to know each other. But that's definitely one of the major takeaways we hear from students in our program, is just having that extra support, not only to navigate the curriculum and content and get you that skill set, but just having that sort of gold star on your resume, like, this is a certified person that has completed this. So I'm glad to hear that, you guys got that most out of that program, and it really helped you with landing your next job. So any favorite parts of participating in the program?
I think the project, hands down. That's, for me at least, what was meaningful. And I think the lessons learned from there have served me well.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, while everything was wonderful, I think the mini projects truly they make you realize what it takes to be a data scientist, right? Because I mean, you can see a problem and like fit a model to it all you want, like really basic, but like those mini projects really nail it. Like it's like I could apply it to things I've done at my job, like stuff like that. The mini projects are hands down the best portion of the training.
I truly enjoyed the lectures. It allowed individuals to sort of speak their mind. It was just a space of sort of just like pre-thought and collaboration, brainstorming, and that would sort of prepare you for those mini projects, if not to figure out how you can apply that to whatever it is that you're working on.
I think all of those are obviously great. I guess I'll add something different just for the sake of, maybe in case it doesn't come up. But one of the, I think, important things that I got out of the program was honestly at the beginning, which was like having like a professional resume writing service look at your resume and, basically help you cater your data science resume to a particular job that you might be interested in. And so like they kind of strengthen your resume and cover letter to, hit the, bullet points of what is required for that job position and, give it to you in a format, that you can then use. And, the resume builder app or site through TDI allows you to basically publish it in a nice format that I think is also designed to make it through a lot of screening services for data science like stuff. So the help with putting together a professional resume, I think was super helpful for me.
There is a method to our resume madness here, how we have you all set up. So you hit it right on the head. We want to make sure that as you're going through and navigating the hiring process, that it gets put right at the top because you're meeting all of those requirements that employers are looking for. So we've talked about favorite parts. Let's talk about parts that were most challenging in the program.
Well, I think for me, the coding challenges, because I didn't know any Python. I did all the, I can't remember what you call them, the examination questions to get into the program in Mathematica, because that's what everyone in my subfield of physics uses. And I'm grateful that everyone gave me a chance, because on the face, maybe it didn't look like I was the strongest candidate for data science, but I had, confidence in myself and in my ability to solve problems. And I'm glad that that was something that, kind of shined through in the end. And I was given the opportunity to participate because I think it was a good fit in the end. And I saw a little question pop up about, how much is not much programming experience. And the answer is like, I had a lot of programming experience in other languages. Okay. But the lingua franca is Python. And so if you don't know Python, learn it. And there's lots of online resources, including the TDI's 12-step program, or I can't remember what you call it. Sarah, you'll have to remind me.
Yeah, you're right. It's 12-day program.
12-day program. Yeah, 12 steps sounds too much like a recovery program. Yeah. But it is 12 steps, right? It's just that you don't call it.
Technically it is. But we'll stick with day for now.
Yeah, I think that's better.
I mean, I'll echo Rob once again. The coding challenges at the beginning of each day were definitely challenging, like the most challenging for me. And I'll say, even knowing Python going in, it was still challenging. I still think recursion specifically to this day, it still blows my mind, even though I understand it for the most part. Mostly. But yeah, I mean, the mini projects, while challenging, you have more time, you have more opportunity to ask questions and collaborate with people if needed. Like, oh, you did it that way, I did it this way, But with the coding challenge, it's just this quick 30-minute, like something you might see in an interview. And that was, definitely challenging at times.
I want to say the SQL mini project for me, because I thought I was a master of SQL. And I was proven wrong once again, right? I think TDI does a good job of humbling you. But other than that, I would say that the capstone would be my follow-up, because you actually have to produce a data product which a lot of people might not be used to in the traditional sense, right? Of I think Robert and Adam pointed it out earlier, which is just fitting a model to anything. You just take some data, you fit a model, and that's it. But now you actually have to produce something that somebody could potentially use. So just put you in the seat of a actual stakeholder, right?
Yeah, and I'll just quickly echo Trey regarding the Capstone project. I mean, I agree. I think actually the hardest thing for me was all of the hacker rank challenges, because like it's just a different sort of mindset, like to have to figure out like some skills you just have to memorize, and some things you just have to like be able to recognize what type of like coding challenge or skill they're actually testing for, and then have to figure out how to do it. But what I found challenging about the Capstone project was really sort of my first experience of like conceptualizing an end-to-end data science project. Like, what is the problem statement? Like, why should anyone be interested in the problem that you're trying to solve? How to find the data that you want in order to answer the question that you're actually trying to ask, right? And then doing all of the obvious like data exploration, building a model, testing different models, whatever. And then like Trey said, like, okay, so what? Now you have a model, like, what is the like how is anyone going to use it? Like, unless they know Python, like it's useless. So like putting it together in a web app or some other sort of production service that any stakeholder that knows how to use the internet could use and get something meaningful out of it. And then being able to sort of finally present that project in a way that captures the interests of anyone, to show that there's a need for this product that you're serving, and being able to sell that story, which I think is helpful for particularly in the interview process when you're trying to talk about a project you're working on. You want to be able to convince them like, this is a worthy project. I know how to do one from start to finish, and I can create a finished product that can be used by an end user.
Well, thank you all for sharing. I want to pivot a little bit. I know we talked a bit about resume services and hiring, but if you could elaborate a bit more about your experience with the job placement resources, things that you took advantage of, or support that you utilized in the program.
Yeah, I can't remember what it stands for, but I believe that the acronym was the CRM. The CRM was very useful. I mean, it's essentially just a database of the partners who are active or not active. You could filter by certain things. So whether it's, location or when they're hiring or if they're hiring, you could filter and just get down to like a very specific subset of the partners that you may be interested in applying to. And I mean, I thought the really cool part was they can look for you as well. Like I said earlier, I mean, I had 2 companies reach out to me, which I mean, in a job hunt, like I said, that never happens really. And I thought that was the coolest part. Yeah, the CRM definitely was super helpful.
Yeah, that's how I got my job. It was not one of the interviews I requested. It was an interview that happened because somebody requested me. And so I think that's a very unique thing to do.
Yeah, I use the CRM as well.
Oh, sorry. Final sentence is just that it was also very easy to get interviews by reaching out. So I think I always had at least a bit of interest. Sometimes it was kind of a very vague posting, and it was some startup that didn't really have funds secure to hire me, but they just kind of wanted to see like what was out there. But there was like a lot of back and forth, I would say.
Yeah, I use the CRM a lot as well. Can't recall if I received any interest directly from companies, or if all of my interviews were initiated by me. But I think the job that I ultimately was placed for, I got via one of the Slack opportunities. So TDI posts job opportunities on the Slack channel almost daily, if not every few days. And I think that was one of the opportunities that I found as well. So I think eventually they end up in the CRM at some point, but like sometimes you can get a Slack opportunity that hasn't made it to the CRM quite yet. And so that's how I found mine.
I just want to agree with everyone. I would definitely say focusing on that job profile that you have in the CRM, that would be a great idea. That's what I took advantage of, and that's how I was able to land my position right now. Somebody reached out to me. I had several companies reach out to me, and that allowed me to be able to differentiate myself, right, and sort of prove my worth, which you don't typically get when you're applying on LinkedIn.
That's exciting to hear. We see that that's a pretty common thing in our cohorts too. With in our first week of our cohort, we introduce our hiring partners to all of our new students. It puts your information out there, your profile, so they can see this exciting cohort that we have. And that's how they really get to know you and start reaching out to schedule interviews. So I'm glad to hear that for so many in this group, that's one of the ways that you're able to find your hiring partner placement. So is there anything that you do in your current job that you learned or help you develop at TDI?
Can I just add one thing to the last thread?
Yeah, of course.
So I just wanted to say that it's sometimes very tricky when you try to apply outside of a program like TDI, because the requirements on paper for the job can sound rather scary. And a lot of the times I found with TDI, the posting would be there, and I would say, oh gosh, I don't think I'm qualified for this job. But still, the person on the other end would hear me out, and I always felt like I got a fair hearing, and I didn't end up with any of those jobs. So maybe it was like a solid requirement, but I didn't feel like I was excluded right away. Like I felt like I had a chance. And I just wanted to mention that, because it can be scary sometimes looking at these lists of, you should have 7 years of this and 5 years of this. And a lot of that is just kind of made up arbitrarily. It's not really the case that there's someone sitting in a room thinking, oh, I can't work with you if you don't have 7 years of analysis or whatever kind of thing they want. Just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's going to be a lot of people's experiences when they're looking at job postings, and it can definitely be an overwhelming process. So we've got an excellent team of PRMs. I know you all had a chance to work with them to really help you navigate the job postings, especially if they're within our network, so they can look at them and tell you're a great fit, or this is what they're really looking for to help you prepare for your upcoming interviews too. So just going back to anything that you learned at TDI or developed at TDI that you use in your current job today.
The biggest one for me is SQL. I think I don't know what Robert, Adam, and Trey use, but I mean, in my job, there's large data sets, right? I mean, we deal with calls for like AT&T and stuff, so millions of data points a day with hundreds of columns. SQL is basically 70% of my job right now. Honestly, that might not be the case everywhere, but for me specifically, SQL was huge. I use it every day, and I thank TDI for it every day. A little silent. Thank you.
Do you have a 2 cents, Robert, about what flavor of SQL is most robust and best to use?
I mean, I don't want to give anybody any sort of like proclivities or anything. I mean, I just we
all
use
right.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
No problem.
I would say Flask. Leveraging Flask and understanding version control through Git.
Well, for me, the core Python programming skills is the obvious one for me, because I didn't have that coming in.
Yeah, I use a little bit of everything. I mean, SQL, of course, Python and Jupyter Notebooks and data viz stuff. So a lot of the data viz training we've done. Yeah.
I've also heard from other students who will, export their mini project work from Jupyter Hub, and if they have a difficult, challenge at work, they'll go through the steps of the projects to really help them reinforce that skill that they learned in the program. So I definitely think, just going back, for those resources, they can definitely help you later on in your career as well.
For sure, I definitely I downloaded the entire repo from Jupyter Hub, and I refer to it, at least monthly. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, certainly super helpful stuff.
So looking back, do you have any advice that you would have told yourself before going through the program?
take the 12-day boot camp a lot more serious.
Kind of funny because you all had a little chuckle
Yes.
before you started answering.
I'm trying to see like how best to phrase this, but it's not really a 12-day program. It's more like a 30-day program. At least if you're like me, like if you didn't know any Python, then it's a 30-day program. And I didn't spend 30 days on it. So I had a lot of catching up to do. If you do know Python, then maybe it really is. I mean, maybe one of you can speak to that.
I mean, I will say, yeah, definitely focus on that 12-day program. Even with Python experience and plenty of coding experience, I mean, it helped a lot. And the only other advice I would give is if you do join, start the mini projects earlier than you would think. That, I mean, while there's, at any point you can ask questions, and talk with an instructor, which is helpful. Sometimes you just need to sink that time into it. I mean, there were a couple where, and it was mostly mistakes on my part, misusing something or not understanding a small concept, but if you have to, take a day to look at it and then take another day to look at it. If you start on Saturday when it's due Sunday, you can't do that really. Definitely start earlier than you think you should on those each week.
But they were at least humane with the deadlines, which I think was appreciated.
Oh, definitely.
And then last question here before we open it up to the floor with questions. What do you think is the most important thing that TDI graduates walk away with?
A job.
Good answer.
A job is a big one, but if I could speak to my engineering background for just a second, whenever I was in some of my sophomore engineering classes, one professor constantly said something about engineering instinct, right? Anybody can be taught to use an equation. Anybody can be taught to put numbers into Excel. But if the number comes out negative, and it should be positive, if you don't have engineering instinct, you're not going to catch it. And I think Data Incubator does that perfectly for data science. Being able to look at a data set and just be able to see trends in it, knowing how to find trends in it if you can't physically see them, seeing changes in your data over time and stuff like that. Like just being able to look at data and say, I think I know how to handle this data set. Like that's invaluable to me.
And I would just say value in the market. I've had several companies attempt to poach me from my current positions, right? Just because of now that I have this credential to go on, and then they go and review it, and there's some sort of inherent value that comes along with that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, this has happened to me too multiple times. I wouldn't describe it as coaching so much as like, testing the waters. So like, how are you liking this position that you're in? Are you interested in exploring other options? Like going in that direction, very obviously on LinkedIn. And I love my job, so I just ignore it. And I tell my boss that he should try to poach the people from that company,
Well, I'm glad to hear you're happy at your job. All right, so at this point, I'm going to open the floor to questions. We have quite a few questions in the Q&A already, but if you haven't put a question in there and you'd like to have it answered by the analyst, please do so now. So our first question, which I think we touched on a little bit earlier, but if we can reiterate, why should you attend TDI rather than learning by yourself?
It's just nice to have some structure, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, I sort of touched on that, I think, in one of my earlier answers, but for me, at least, I'll be honest, it is entirely possible to find all the information that you could learn about data science online somewhere, for free, probably. The few things that I will say is one, it is possible to get into TDI for free if you get in as a fellow. But even if you have to do the paid option, like having a catered, curriculum that is guaranteed to be like the foundational knowledge you need in most of what you might be doing in data science was a huge benefit for me. It helped me sort of focus like what I needed to work on. It forced you to put a project together that is the main thing that anyone really cares about when they ask about an interview. Like other than like your resume, like if you don't have a project that they can see end to end that you've done something, like it's almost impossible to like convince them that you know what you're doing. Resume help so that, your resume gets filtered, passes through the resume filters, and having someone that is experienced in writing, quality resumes, really focus your resume and make it as strong as possible. And then finally, connection, the relationship between TDI and their hiring partners, so that basically gets you a foot in the door at any place, any one of their partners that you're interested in applying to. Like I said, I tried to do this on my own. Maybe I got a first round interview at 5% of the places that I applied to. And with TDI, I think 90% of the ones that I applied to, I at least got a first round interview.
And then for all of our panelists, we have another question here. What sort of traditional software development backgrounds did you all have before joining the program? For example, what's your strongest programming language and experience depth coming into the program?
I was probably a little on the higher side, I guess. I had been using MATLAB for 8 years before joining the program. MATLAB isn't a terrible language. But then I'd been using Python for probably 3-ish years beforehand. It was still extremely valuable, honestly. I don't think there's such a thing as too much practicing when it comes to things like Python. I mean, especially when you have all of these libraries that you've potentially never used before, right? I mean, it's not necessarily a new programming language, but it's completely foreign whenever you open up like a machine learning program as opposed to, just normal pandas or something like that, Yeah, so I had a lot of experience going in and it was still amazing.
So this question is actually going to be for Trey. Can you tell us about your experience in the part-time program?
I would say it was a perfect balance for what I had going on. So I was working full time as a data analyst, and so it allowed me to work, my full time job, and then come home and sort of study and then refine my skill set to apply for that next level. So I found it to be, worthwhile. I would just say, you're going to have some longer nights. And you just might have to be used to that, or be willing to sacrifice a little bit of that fun time or free time that you have currently to be dedicated to the fellowship. But other than that, if you're willing to make that sacrifice, I think it's very worth it.
I'm glad to hear. And we hear that from a lot of our students in the part-time program. They're choosing that because of the flexibility to be able to, if you're working full-time and you are not ready to commit to leaving your current role and want to continue your education, part-time is a great option. For other students who are wanting to get through the program a little bit quicker and go on to their next role, then full-time is definitely a great option if you can balance the workload. So another question for all of our panelists, did you experience imposter syndrome when starting your first position outside of TDI? And then what do you do in your position now that you feel TDI prepared you for?
I want to say yes. Even before I left TDI, I was experiencing imposter syndrome. I would say now that I'm in my role and some of the work that I'm doing, I'm not even fazed by it. The level in terms of how complex I would make things out to be, sort of like Occam's razor. I just keep everything simple. And that's what TDI sort of has provided me in terms of the mindset and how you approach certain things. Is just keep it simple. Don't try to overthink or complicate, a really easy question when, it really just takes a simple approach. But yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, I definitely had that because I expected them to really want me to know Python from front to back on my first day, but it wasn't like that at all. They were very, very accommodating. And, because it's a significant step for the company too to hire you. So they're going to put you somewhere where they can use your skills. And if you don't have every single skill on day one, I feel like that's actually not a big deal at a lot of smaller companies. Now, if you're going to try to get a job at Google, then you should probably know everything in the job description backwards and forwards. That is hard. I mean, I know a lot of people who work there, and I assume it's the same at all of the, I don't know what they call it nowadays. I was going to say FANG, but it's not really FANG anymore, is it? It's like...
Is it Mang now that it's Meta?
No, it's like man. It's terrible, right? Because it's not Google, it's Alphabet. Right. So man, great. All right, yeah. So that's my take. I definitely had imposter syndrome, but I got over it, and no one cared in the end. They were just happy to use the skills that I did have and let me learn the rest.
Yeah, I mean, just to once again mirror everyone. I mean, the short answer is yes. The long answer is hell yes, I guess. But the at least the company I work for, I mean, there was a 3-week long training period where regardless of the fact that I was a data scientist and I was trained through TDI, that there are very specific things that you do at your job, or depending. I mean, if you're in a smaller company, maybe it's not quite defined yet, but at least for mine, I had a specific role that I was meant to fill, and I was trained for 3 weeks to do that job, and I still felt like I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't until, I don't know, 6 months in when we had our H2 reviews, when my manager was like, "Yeah, you're doing fantastic. Honestly, I breathe a sigh of relief every time you're like, yeah, I'll do that." So yeah, it fully prepared me, even if I didn't think I was that good.
I'll just jump in and say I still have imposter syndrome. I mean, like it's but part of what I think TDI was able to do for me is manage it. Like I know that there are things that I don't know. Like, I mean, it's an 8-week course, or if it's a part-time, it's still probably the same content. It's just over a longer period of time. But like, it's only really a foundational level like material. You get a little bit of a lot of different things, and it doesn't touch on everything. And so you're always going to get into a situation, or you can always potentially get into a situation where you're like, I actually don't know how to do, use this model, or I whatever. There's always something, but like, I have the tools to figure out how to do it. And I'm confident that like, even if I don't know how to do something now, like, you give me a couple of weeks and some learning materials and some time to figure it out, like I can figure it out.
That's one of the things we found when we've actually did a webinar with ODSC talking about imposter syndrome, is that it's a cycle. It's something that's going to affect you at various stages of your career. And it's actually very common. So it will happen to most of us. Even I experience it from time to time, but there are tools and things to help you prepare. I think definitely going through the program and having that foundational knowledge and feeling confident in your ability does help, but it will come up from time to time. But there are some tips that we can share with you to help you overcome that and prepare for it in the future as well. So I saw another question here that I thought was interesting. Let me just, not that I don't think all questions are interesting, but one that is towards the bottom. I want to make sure that we get to it before we end our session today. So for all of our panelists, after finishing the program, how long did it take you to get a job offer?
I think I was employed before I left TDI. So I received my offer in February. We concluded in March.
Yeah,
it was end of March.
Yeah, I think we finished our cohort in March, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I got my job offer in April.
Yeah, I
So
got my
shortly
job
after.
offer towards the end. I started April 5th. So I'm actually very recently celebrating a year.
Yes, and I started in like early May 3rd, I think it was. So, yeah. Performance review. My boss told me it's coming. Now we'll see.
And then another question here for our panelists. So to what extent do you feel your domain expertise in your previous fields came into play after the program and in your current role?
Well, I think it was very important. I think that, for a lot of things, and this, I think someone already touched on a little bit, maybe it was Trey, that sometimes in research, people tend to overcomplicate things unnecessarily. And so I think just to have a steady hand and to kind of not jump the gun and start writing the program prematurely, but to really think through the thing to the end and make sure that you understand the, morally speaking, I don't know, correct is the right word, but the phrase that stuck with me from one of my physics professors many years ago when I was in grad school is, my job is to make you right thinking. And I'm going to tentatively say that right thinking means thinking like me. And so he was kind of an egomaniac, but the message is that, if you have enough people who are good at research telling you how to do research for long enough, that's going to rub off on you. And I think that's really what I brought to the table with, being someone who had a background in research at my firm.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak much to engineering specifically giving me a leg up in TDI because I mean, designing a bridge doesn't necessarily help you be good at coding or anything like that. But the PhD side of things, just learning research methods, and then for me specifically, I did do some computational stuff, so that helped out a lot, and I was able to bring that to TDI, and I still bring some of it to my job. I did a lot of optimization in my PhD, and I still do a lot of optimization to this day, defining some target metrics, based on data, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into my job specifically unless anybody has a question, but I do still use some of that day to day. Yeah.
And then can you talk about your experiences participating in the program online? And if you could do it again, would you participate in person?
Nope. I have
No.
a family, so that's not possible.
That's a quick answer.
Yeah, I would say online. It's just for the flexibility because I had to go into the office at work. It would have been such a hassle to sort of, but let me not say that. But yeah, for me, remote.
I mean, I would say that I did enjoy online a lot. The flexibility is wonderful. That in between lecture and I honestly forget what's directly after lecture, maybe like office hours and stuff. But the fact that I could go lay down in my bed for 15 minutes, was kind of wonderful at times. But honestly, I mean, I do miss like a classroom setting from time to time. I do like physically interacting with people. So I mean, I think if I had to do it again, I wouldn't mind trying in person, provided there wasn't a pandemic. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed online. I think either would be great.
I ditto Robert Zoo. Yeah, I did it online. It was fine. I would, if I were to do it again, I would consider doing it in person.
That's one of the great things that we try to take our on-ground program and really translate it well online to make sure that you have that community of learners that you're able to pull from and network with. And I think some of the things we've changed, I think even since our two Roberts and Adam were in the program, is just giving you more opportunities to socialize, study group sessions with the entire cohort where you can network and work closely together. But we also do have options for our students if they'd like to participate in person. We recently had our first in-person cohort in Berkeley, and it was a great experience for our students. So if you're interested in one or the other, just send us an email and we can talk to you about our options of online or in person as well.
How many locations do you have nowadays for in-persons?
Just Berkeley for now. But we are hoping, in the future to open up more options. But for now, our plan is just with in California.
Gotcha. Cool.
And then I think we've answered this all, but someone wants to know if you all work remote currently.
No.
I do, with no current plans to go into the office as of right now.
Yeah, I have to relocate in about 4 months.
So for me, it's a mixed bag. I mean, it's not fully remote, but I can be remote 4 days a week. There's only a small amount of work that has to be physically like in the building, and everything else, it's fine for me to be working on my company issued laptop. So it's a small amount of work. And for where I'm sitting, it's not a bad deal because I do enjoy actually seeing my coworkers in real life and having lunch with them. I mean, I think that's nice. And I know that I was missing that for the years of the pandemic. So maybe I'll get sick of them at some point and wish I could be fully remote. But for the time being, at least, I'm enjoying it. And it's the right balance for me because, like I said, I have a family, and it's great to have the flexibility to help my wife with whatever it is that needs to be done, or even if I just need to, like Robert said, during the program, if I need to go lie down for 15 minutes and collect my thoughts and come back with the solution to the problem that I'm having, it's just a very nice work-life balance for me right now. But I'm not even sure that I would necessarily want it to be fully remote because I do like having the possibility to have the sort of Blackboard discussion type chats that I had back when I was in theoretical physics. So that's something which is very nice for me personally, to have that kind of human interaction occasionally, but to be kind of remote for the rest of the week. And for me, it's a great balance.
And because we are coming up on the end of our time today, any last minute advice for our incoming cohort?
I mean, biggest thing I'd say is don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, the instructors are there to help you. I mean, that's just general life advice, honestly. Just ask questions, even if you think it's the stupidest possible question. Somebody will answer it. I still do, and it helps a lot, honestly.
And to kind of piggyback off of Rob, I would say, somebody in the program is probably struggling on the same exact thing that you're struggling with. So yeah, definitely make sure to ask questions and believe in yourself, right? You made it into the program, so feel like that 2% that made it in.
And just one final thing regarding the clearance, if anyone does want to consider DCI solutions, I encourage you to contact the whoever it is who's in charge now, probably Dr. Jonathan Mullen, with recruiting as early as possible. And there may be the chance to start thinking about doing the paperwork for the clearance sooner rather than later. So, I just don't want people to feel like it's a closed door. You don't have to have the clearance already. I did not, and I still actually, I've been cleared, but I don't have all the IDs and bells and whistles. So just to throw that out there, that it's not a closed door, for people who are qualified to be cleared.
And then I'll just say a piece of practical advice. Like, if you know that you are looking to apply, for sure, you literally can't spend enough time, or you can't spend too much time planning your capstone project. There's always something to do, and it often becomes a challenge practically to juggle doing your capstone project while you're also responsible for doing the mini projects. So, and, for the technical challenge, once you start it, you have 72 hours to submit it. And the biggest part is, doing some legwork on your capstone project to show that there is something to your project. So I think I spent 2 or 3 weeks off and on just thinking about it, trying to find the right question, trying to find the right data set before I even started the technical challenge, in order to make sure that I had the time to put in the work. A lot of people struggled in our cohort, I think, to juggle both doing the if you had to restart your capstone project in the fellowship, it is a challenge.
Well, I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. We love to see our alumni come back to these events and just share some of their insights for our incoming students. And thank you so much for your time today. I know it was helpful for our students to get some answers from you and just really help them prepare before the program starts. I just want to throw out one last reminder here. The regular admissions application for our summer cohort actually closes this Friday. So if you're waiting on this session to get some more information, haven't submitted your application yet, please make sure you do so by that deadline. And then the regular admissions challenge will close on that Monday. So that challenge Adam was talking about, those 72 hours, we have over the weekend to work on it. And then our full-time cohort will start June 27th and it goes through August 19th. And then part-time cohort also June 27th through November 11th. So I believe we put a link in the chat to submit your application. But if you have any questions after this session, if you want to talk to an enrollment counselor, please email us admissions@thedataincubator.com. We are happy to set up a call for you as well. And then again, this session has been recorded. It takes a couple of days to process, so all of the registered attendees will get a copy of this recording as well. But again, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you to our panelists, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.